Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make orange madeleines, and this is what they look like. Madeleines are instantly recognizable by their unique shape and warm from the oven. The outside edges are wonderfully crisp, yet inside they're soft and tender, and they have a wonderful sweet, buttery orange flavor. So, when you make a Madeleine batter, essentially you're making a sponge cake batter. Well, more precisely, we're making a genoise batter. The difference between a regular sponge and a genoise is that you add warm melted butter. So that's the first thing we're going to do is melt some butter. You will need a half a cup, 113 grams of unsalted butter, and then have a saucepan. Just put that right in there. And I'm going to melt the butter over medium heat. Okay, so our butter has melted. Now, you could take it off the heat and use it like that, but what I'm going to do today is make brown butter. So that means we're going to cook it just a little, a couple minutes, until it takes on a little bit of like a light golden brown color, and that's going to give the butter becomes really kind of very flavorful and nutty almost, which really adds to the flavor of our madeleines. Now you will have to just swirl your pan a little, adjust your heat. It's going to boil. Okay, so like I said, just swirl your pan, don't stir it. And we're getting some color. Whether you can see that, there's lots of bubbles and foam, but okay. I'm going to take that off the heat. You'll have lots of foam, but so swirl your pan, and then I'm going to pour it right in here, and you can see it. So we have, there'll be a little sediment on the bottom of your saucepan, that's fine, but if you can see, just a light golden brown. That's the way I like it. Now we want to keep this butter warm, so I'm going to put that lid right on top. And just as a little bit of information, if we cooked that butter even more, it would separate into layers, and then you would have what is called clarified butter. So we have our brown butter. I'm just going to get my mixer, and we'll be right back and start our sponge cake batter. So now for our sponge cake batter. If you have an electric stand mixer like I have here, use your paddle attachment, or you could use a hand mixer. And the first thing you will need is 3 large eggs, which is 150 grams of eggs, and have your eggs at room temperature. Let's put that right in there, along with a half a cup, 100 grams of granulated white sugar. And I also like to add a little brown sugar, 3 tablespoons, 35 grams of light brown sugar. And now, I'm going to beat this on medium-high speed. I want it to become really thick and soft and fluffy. And that's going to take, it could take 5 minutes, or it could take, 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the type of mixer you're using. So it does take a bit. Okay, so I think it's done. Let's check it. You can see, let's get it nice, beautifully thick, soft, fluffy. And then so that's what you're looking for. Like I said, depending on your mixer, 5 to 10 minutes. So now, we're going to beat in our flavorings. I'm adding the grated zest of 1 orange, and you could use any type of orange you want. When you grate your orange, you wash them first, and then when you grate, just grate the orange part, not the white underneath that, because it's quite bitter. We don't want that. And then I'm adding 1 tablespoon of freshly squeezed orange juice. And then I'm going to bump up that orange flavor by adding a half a teaspoon, 2 grams of pure orange extract. Now, if you don't have it, you could just leave it out. And then I'm also adding, I like a little vanilla with the orange. I'm adding a half a teaspoon, 2 grams of pure vanilla extract. Again, if you don't want the vanilla flavor, you can just leave that out. I'm going to beat that in. If you use orange extract, you won't believe it just smells like orange in here. Okay. So now I'm actually going to transfer my batter to a large, like wide bowl so you can really see what I'm doing here. You don't have to at home, because that'd be one more bowl to wash. But I will say that the wide bowl does make it easier to fold in our flour. So in a separate bowl, I have 1 cup, which is 130 grams of all-purpose flour. You may know that as plain flour. I'm going to add a half a teaspoon, 2 grams of baking powder. That's going to add to the lift of our Madeleines, and then just a quarter of a teaspoon of salt. I'm going to just whisk that. I mean, you could sift it, but I am going to sift the flour over top of our batter. And whoop, I don't want to forget my brown butter there. But first, we are going to fold in our flour. We don't want to do it all at once. I'm going to sift it over the top. I'm going to add a little, maybe about 1/3 of our flour. And then with your spatula, we're just going to fold this in, just up and over. Now, this is a bit of a technique, and we don't want to deflate our batter too much when we add in the flour. So just fold it until you can't see it anymore, and then add some more. And I'll do the rest. Okay. If you've never done this kind of technique, making Madeleines is a good way to start instead of like a cake, because we're just making little tiny cakes. So even if you just, maybe deflated the batter a little too much by overfolding, we're not going to notice. Okay, that looks good. Just going to cut through and up and over to make sure you don't have any flour pockets in there. And then take your butter. Now you want your butter lukewarm. Let's give it a stir. And that's lukewarm. If it's cooled down too much, I would reheat it to lukewarm, either in your microwave or back on the stove, because you don't want like kind of cold butter or even like room temperature and try to put it in there, because what you tend to do, it's hard to fold it in, and then you could get some streaks in your batter, which we don't want. So now what I'm going to do is, because this is heavy and this is light, so we don't want to dump that butter right in. So I'm going to take some of my batter, maybe like, whoop, try not to slop like I did, maybe about a cup. Looks good. And then I'm going to stir that in. And that's going to lighten the butter, and it's going to make it much easier to fold in. Like I said, this is a Genoise batter. A little different because we're adding the melted butter, where a regular sponge wouldn't do this. But with the butter, of course, you get that wonderful buttery flavor, and it adds a real nice soft and tender crumb to our madeleines. So good. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to just pour it down the side, and then we're just going to gently fold that in as well. Now, it does deflate it a bit, I'm not going to lie to you, but not too much. Now, unfortunately, we cannot bake off our madeleines right away. This batter needs to be chilled. The good part is you can actually make your batter and chill it in the refrigerator for up to 3 days. So you can kind of make it one day and then bake off your madeleines another day. So that's good. We're done. But if you were in a rush, I mean, you want to bake them off the same day, I would chill your batter at least like 4 hours. I'm going to say at least that much. But I'm actually going to chill it overnight. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to pour it into that bowl, cover it with plastic wrap, put it in the refrigerator, and then when we come back tomorrow, we will bake off our madeleines. So I chilled the batter overnight, so now we are ready to bake our madeleines, but first we need to prepare our pan. As you can see here, madeleines are baked in their own special pan, and they usually come in either a 12 count or mine actually is a 16 count. This recipe will make, I'm going to say, about 20 to 22 madeleines, and if you can, non-stick, but either one. And as you can see, kind of a cool looking shape. They have a shape like a shell. The edges are scalloped, and then they have these deep ridges. So what you're going to have is on one side of the madeleine it's going to have the ridges, and on the other side it's smooth with a little bit of a hump. So to prepare your pan, you want to melt a little bit of butter, and then I like to use a pastry brush. I've done most of them, but I'll show you how to do the rest. Just brush inside. And especially if you're not using a non-stick pan, you really want to make sure you butter your pan really well, because this batter does have a tendency to stick. So just butter. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of flour in each one. And then normally I would do this over the sink, but so just kind of jiggle your pan, and then I'm going to have to bang this, sorry, to get off the excess flour. And then you could take a cloth and just clean up your pan. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this pan into the refrigerator. I want that butter to kind of harden up. So I'm going to do that, and that'll take, I'm going to put it in there 10 to 15 minutes. And while I do that, I'm going to preheat the oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 190 degrees Celsius. And then when we come back, we will bake off our madeleines. So now we are ready to bake our madeleines. Now, I forgot to say, if you don't have a madeleine pan and you don't want to buy one, don't worry. You could use like either a mini muffin pan or a regular size, or if you had some individual molds, you could do that. But again, make sure you butter and flour your pans. So then, for your madeleines, you want to use, if you have an ice cream scoop, you want like a generous tablespoon, or you could just use 2 spoons. So these ice cream scoops are so handy. So just put your batter like that, and don't spread it out. Just leave it in a ball like that. And that's what you do. So now, everyone's oven is a little different. Important thing is we do not want to overbake these because they will be dry. So always, I'm going to say 8 to 11 minutes, but you might want to check them at the 7-minute mark just to make sure maybe your oven's running a little hot. So what are you looking for? The outside edges they'll start to brown, If you take your finger and in the center, it'll be springy to the touch, or you could take a toothpick, insert it into the center, and it will come out clean. So I'm going to say 8 to 11 minutes. Okay. So our Madeleines are done. As you can see, starting to brown around the edges. If I my finger springs back, I did put a toothpick into the center, came out clean. So now, and what you're supposed to have is, you can see here, it's not flat across, there's a hump. It's the classic look of a Madeleine. So now we want to take them out of the pan right away. So I did either butter or just lightly oil your wire rack, and then I'm just gonna tap this, and they did come all out. So there we have it. Don't they look nice on the other side? See, they're golden brown with the nice ridges. So Madeleines are at their best, freshly made that first day. It's when they're the best. But I mean, you can cover them, store them for a few days. So what I'm going to do is just let these cool down a little, and then when we come back, we will try one. So to serve your Madeleines, I mean, you can have them plain. And another idea would be to melt some chocolate, either like a semi-sweet or a bittersweet, and then you could dip just the ends in that. But I'm going to do kind of the classic thing of the powdered sugar. I think it looks nice and it tastes good. So these are still a little warm. Maybe I'll break one in half. Oh, inside, isn't that gorgeous? Like a little, it's just like a little cake, a little sponge cake. Like I said, make sure you don't overbake these, because if you overbake them, like you overbake a cake, it's dry, which we don't want. So really, check, make sure you don't overbake them. And then they are spongy, they are light, very moist, tender because of that melted butter we added, and the flavor. Putting the orange zest, the orange juice, and then the orange extract gives you, like, it's not overpowering, but it's a nice orange flavor. And then a little bit of vanilla, I think, just adds a little extra flavor. Really light, nice. Like I said, they are best the first day. Like, I admit it, they're the best. But I mean, you can cover them and store them overnight or for a day, maybe 2 days. And then sometimes I just heat them up just a little in the microwave, and then they're a little better. So you must try these. And until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.